Rain brushes window frames beside ivory yarn skeins. Warm lamp shadows gather across cedar shelves. Cardigans, steam circles, teacups beside cream sweaters and cushions. Needles cross steady rhythms beside drifting rainfall indoors. Thin clouds cover distant rooftops beyond window panes shimmering. Cotton slippers rest beneath woven blankets by armchairs. Fingers guide pale fibers across wooden knitting needles. Small breaths follow kettle echoes beside cedar table lights. Pages sleep beneath flower pots by walnut bookcase corners. Raindrops gather rivers across blurred apartment windows glistening. Knitted rows extend beneath careful wrist beside cushions. Muted thunder carries memories through hallway corners lingering. Pale sweaters drape across chairs beside woven baskets. Fresh skeins scatter creamy colors around cedar floorboards. Wooden needles balance patient patterns across blanket textures. Rainwater paints dim reflections beside kitchen window frames. Tea fragrance follows drifting steam across ceramic coasters. Bread loops tighten beneath steady palms beside reading lamps. Quiet breathing joins rainfall rhythms around living room corners. Wool strands collect patient warmth beside notebook pages. Candles brighten cedar tables beneath framed postcard collections. Raindrops continue silver journeys across neighborhood rooftop gardens. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Blankets gather rounded folds across reading corner armchairs. Crocheted flowers decorate baskets beside knitting pattern pages. Small clocks repeat mellow rhythms beside apartment hallway walls. Thread bundles carry gentle texture beneath resting fingertips. Muted jazz melodies wander across steaming teacup circles. Ivory sleeves brush woven cushions beside cedar armrests. Window glass catches trembling reflections beside potted flowers. Needle movements follow practice patterns across knitted fabrics. Potted herbs collect rain fragrance beside kitchen counters. Warm cardigans surround shoulders beside knitted tablecloth patterns. Clouded skylines disappear behind silver rainfall curtains descending. Tiny stitches gather ordered rows beneath patient fingertips. Faint thunder trembles beyond apartment buildings across intersections. Kettle whistles travel across hallways toward cushioned armchairs. Wool patterns resemble drifting rivers beneath amber table lights. Wood grain textures surround resting slippers beside storage baskets. Rainfall carries muted echoes across rooftop garden pathways. Loose fibers gather rounded clouds beside paperback collections. Porcelain teacups release cinnamon fragrance around reading corners. Knitting needles maintain patient rhythms beside apartment windows. Warm blankets cover narrow knees beside reading armchairs. Steam drips above porcelain cups beside potted flowers. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Red colors deepen beneath amber lamps beside rain streak patterns. Finished rows stretch across patient laps beside cushions. Wooden shelves hold journals beside framed postcard collections. Muted piano echoes travel through apartment hallway corners. Silver rainfall softens distant traffic beyond apartment intersections. Cream yarn gathers rounded patterns beneath polished needles. Tea fragrance settles across cedar tables beside sketchbooks. Warm breathing follows steady rhythms beside linen curtains. Knitted fabric reaches pages, folded sleeves beneath resting fingertips, rainwater traces, silver pathways across apartment window panes glistening. Lamp shadows cradle quiet evening memories beside armchairs. Needles rest beside finished cardigans, awaiting morning sunlight. Raindrops cover glass beside crowded flower shelves. Warm blankets gather folds across reading chair cushions. Ivory thread circles needles beneath waiting fingertips indoors. Steam rises above porcelain mugs beside cedar tabletops. Muted thunder reaches hallways beyond rooftop banner sections shimmering. Crocheted fabrics rest across baskets beside house slippers. Pale cardigans surround shoulders beside amber table lights indoors. Window reflections tremble across floors beneath rain cloud curtains. Fresh tea fragrance fills rooms beside bookshelf corners. Knitting patterns expand beneath careful wrist beside armchairs. Tiny stitches gather textures across growing sweater panels. Cattle echoes travel through corridors toward living rooms indoors. Cream yarn bundles decorate corners beside folded blankets. Rainwater paints rivers across apartment windows shimmering gently. Wooden needles balance rhythms beside framed picture collections. Book pages sleep beneath flower pots beside cedar shelves. Soft cushions cradle folded knees beside tablecloth textures. Silver skylines disappear behind rainfall curtains beyond rooftops. Needle crossings follow motions across expanding sweater fabrics. Muted jazz melodies wander around steaming teacups windowside. Warm lamp shadows gather across cedar floors indoors. Potted herbs collect rain fragrance beside kitchen windows. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Wool textures resemble clouds beside baskets holding thread skeins. Rainfall rhythms surround rooms beyond amber reading table lights. Thread loops tighten beneath steady palms beside cushions. Porcelain cups release cinnamon fragrance around reading armchairs. Window glass catches reflections beside cedar reading armchairs. Knitted sleeves drape across blankets beside woven slippers. Tiny stitches gather warmth beneath crossing knitting needles. Muted piano echoes travel through apartment hallways indoors. Cream fibers slide across fingers beside sketchbook pages. Rainwater traces silver pathways beyond rooftop garden intersections. Warm breathing joins kettle whistles beside cedar tables. Crocheted flowers decorate baskets beside cardigans. Sleeve patterns pale clouds cover skylines beyond apartment windows shimmering. Wood grain textures surround corners beside woven reading cushions. Needle movements continue patterns across growing sweater panels. Tea fragrance follows drifting steam around living room corners. Lamp shadows cradle evening memories beside flower containers. Rainfall carries muted echoes through apartment hallways indoors. Ivory yarn gathers round the shapes beneath waiting fingertips. Porcelain mugs rest across coasters beside reading armchairs. Warm cardigans surround shoulders beside knitted tablecloth textures. Thread bundles scatter creamy colors around cedar floorboards. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Rainy knitting hearts remember warm window light beside cardigans. Finished row wraps around. Reading armchairs, silver rainfall softens traffic beyond apartment rooftop intersections. Needles cross steady rhythms beside cream blankets cushion side. Tiny stitches gather texture beneath careful resting fingertips. Warm lamp colors surround rooms beside crowded flowers. Knitted fabric reaches sleeves beneath polished knitting needles. Rainwater paints reflections across living room windows, shimmering softly. Tea fragrance settles beside cedar shelves holding paperbacks. Quiet breathing follows rainfall rhythms around cushioned armchairs. Morning rain taps cedar frames beside woven blankets. Cream yarn rests beside porcelain flower vases. Amber lamps guard shelves filled with paperbacks. Knitting needles cross warm palms beside chamomile. Window glass gathers silver trails above garden stones. Cardigan sleeves brush wrist beside cable patterns. Teacup vapor circles lilies beside cotton napkins. Raindrops shape muted rhythms across maple branches. Ivory thread follows fingers through sweater loops. Wooden chairs cradle blankets beside sketchbook pages. Rainwater mirrors lantern beams across apartment windows. Kettle whistles drift through hallways beside ceramic bowls. Pale knitted fabric covers knees beside cushions. Tiny droplets wander downward across balcony panels. Brown tea leaves release fragrance beside butter cookies. Fireplace embers paint shadows across watercolor portraits. Gentle sparrows vanish beyond telephone cables during rainfall. Woolen cardigans preserve warmth beneath fingertips resting. Knitting patterns stretch across notebooks beside pencils waiting. Rainfall melodies accompany breathing beside candle containers. Teacups circle stain oak tables beneath knitting needles. Warm window reflections surround pale cheeks beside vapor. Rainy knitting, warms patient winter hearts. Rainy knitting, frames porcelain window reflections. Soft cream fibers tighten beneath bamboo knitting needles. Raindrops collect crooked rivers upon apartment railings. Bookshelf corner shelter postcards beside jasmine petals. Tea fragrance fills bedrooms beside cable sweater sketches. Muted thunder follows rain cloud currents beyond station rooftops. Half-finished scarves cover laps beside cotton dresses. Glass windows capture candle glimmers above ceramic teacups. Knitting motions guide thoughts toward household memories. Silver rainwater streaks downward beside apartment streetlights reflected. Chunky wool cardigans embrace shoulders beside ribbon baskets. Steaming black tea accompanies chapters from romance paperbacks. Needle movements trace braided textures across winter pullovers. Potted flowers colors rest beside dripping panes beneath lanterns. Warm porcelain mugs cradle cinnamon tea beside yarn balls. Rain rhythms echo through corridors beside landscape paintings. Ivory sleeves brush fingertips during knitting progress sessions. Woven blankets gather fragrance from cedar cabinets during rainfall. Cardigan collars frame smiling faces beside embroidery thread. Tea-stained journals preserve sketches beside cable knitwear patterns. Window reflections capture candle beams across balcony flower pots. Rain cloud echoes surround apartments beside bookshelf corners resting. Cream yarn spirals across cushions beside cotton dresses. Rainy knitting shelters dreaming paper cranes. Rainy knitting follows glowing window raindrops. Teacup handles warm fingers beside beeswax candle containers. Knitted textures resemble drifting rivers beneath bridge railings. Rainwater blurs distant traffic beyond apartment intersections visible. Pale cardigan sleeves brush notebooks beside charcoal portraits. Steaming herbal tea accompanies pages from library paperbacks. Needle patterns create braided diamonds across winter cardigans. Window panes shimmer beneath rainfall beside brass table lamps. Warm blankets surround shoulders beside baskets carrying yarn. Morning rainfall fades behind curtains beside potted flowers. Finished knitwear rests across slabs beside porcelain teacups. Amber lamplight crowns peaceful rooms beside tea fragrance. Knitting needles remain crossed beside completed winter sweaters. Cream yarn bundles cover cedar tables near armchairs. Rainwater touches narrow windows beyond rooftop gardens. Warm lamp colors surround woven baskets holding threads. Kinds patient fingers separate tangled fibers across blankets. Ivory thread circles polished needles near teacups. Knitted thunder reaches apartment hallways beyond rain clouds. Soft wool textures resemble drifting clouds above floorboards. Tea fragrance follows kettle steam around waiting corners. Fresh kinds gather round to shapes near waiting bookshelves. Window reflections shimmer across cedar floors beneath rainwater. Knitting patterns expand through careful hands near cushions. Pale fibers collect steady warmth around cardigans. Cream thread strands rest inside woven storage baskets. Rainfall rhythms travel across rooftops beyond glowing windows. Wood grain textures surround shelter corners near flower containers. Needle crossings guide patient motions through sweater panels. Warm blankets cover folded knees near scattered yarn skeins. Silver skylines disappear behind rainfall curtains beyond towers. Ivory fibers drift across patient palms near sketchbooks. Porcelain mugs release cinnamon fragrance around tabletops. Potted herbs collect rain fragrance near kitchen windows. Muted piano echoes travel through apartment corridors tonight. Rainy knitting circles cradle cream yarn beside windows. Rainy knitting circles cradle cream yarn gather cloud-like textures across blanket corners. Tea steam circles, porcelain cups near picture frames tonight. Thread skeins display creamy colors around cedar floorboards. Needles maintain practiced rhythms near reading armchairs. Rainwater paints crooked rivers across apartment window panes. Warm cardigans surround narrow shoulders near tablecloth patterns. Cream yarn strands slide beneath patient fingertips near cushions. Muted jazz melodies wander around living room corners. Fresh wall textures resemble snowfall across storage baskets. Cloud reflections shimmer beyond intersections beneath drifting rain clouds. Tea fragrance settles around cedar shelves holding paperbacks. Tiny stitches gather ordered rows beneath crossing needles. Pale rag bundles decorate corners near cream blankets. Kettle whistles travel through hallways toward glowing armchairs. Rainfall carries nude echoes beyond rooftop gardens. Patient hands untangle resting fibers across sweater pieces. Warm lamp shadows gather near flower containers waiting. Ivory yarn circles wooden needles across tabletops tonight. Porcelain teacups rest upon patterned coasters near cushions. Window glass catches trembling reflections beyond apartment skylines. Green fibers collect rounded folds near reading baskets. Muted thunder trembles beyond streets beneath rain cloud curtains. Rainy knitting circles cradle cream yarn beside windows. Rainy knitting circles cradle cream yarn beside windows. Finished rows stretch across patient laps near flower pots. Tea steam drifts above porcelain mugs around cedar tables. Thread skeins carry gentle texture beneath practiced knitting motions. Rainwater softens distant traffic beyond apartment rooftops. Warm breathing joins rainfall rhythms around reading corners. Pale yarn strands gather layer patterns near armchairs tonight. Wooden shelves display weathered journals near framed postcards. Needle crossings continue steady motions through cardigan fabrics. Knitted fabric reaches rounded sleeves beneath wooden needles. Rainwater traces silver pathways across apartment windows tonight. Lamp shadows cradle evening memories near woven baskets. Cream yarn bundles rest near finished cardigans awaiting sunlight. Wooden needles balance steady patterns on cream blankets. Rainwater gathers silver rivers beyond rooftop intersections shimmering. Warm lamp colors surround sheltered corners by flower containers. Patient fingers guide practice motions through sweater panels. Polished knitting needles cross above woven baskets nearby. Tea fragrance follows kettle steam around cedar tables. Muted thunder reaches neighboring hallways beyond rain cloud curtains. Ivory thread strands collect warmth within cardigan sleeves. Needle tips glimmer beneath amber lamplight by teacups. Silver skylines disappear behind rainfall curtains beyond rooftops. Warm blankets cover folded knees by reading armchairs. Tiny stitches gather ordered rows through knitting patterns. Rainfall rhythms travel across narrow streets beyond windows. beside knitted textures. Pale fibers slide beneath patient fingertips on cushions. Muted piano echoes wander through apartment corners indoors. Fresh tea steam circles porcelain mugs around bookshelves. Polished needles guide creamy yarn across cardigan panels. Window reflections shimmer across floorboards beneath silver rainwater. Woven baskets hold scattered threads, kinds beside blankets indoors. Lamp shadows gather beside flower containers around armchairs. Cloud reflections tremble beyond rooftops beneath rain cloud curtains. Rainy knitting needles carry warm cardigan dreams beside windows. Rainy knitting needles carry warm cardigan dreams beside windows. Needle crossings follow patient rhythms by picture collections. Tea fragrance settles around sheltered corners by cushions. Ivory yarn strands gather textures across sweater sleeves. Rainwater paints crooked pathways beyond apartment window panes, shimmering. Warm cardigans surround narrow shoulders beside cedar tables. Knitting needles balance practiced motions through fabric panels. Muted jazz melodies drift around teacups beside sketchbooks. Rainfall carries distant echoes beyond rooftop pathways, shimmering. Wood grain textures around reading corners beside cream blankets. Silver rain clouds cover distant skylines beyond apartment windows. Patient hands guide crossing needles through stitch row patterns. Potted herbs collect rain fragrance beside kitchen counters. Needle tips rest above baskets holding pale threads, kinds. Warm lamp colors spread across cedar floorboards near armchairs. Tea steam circles porcelain mugs around reading armchairs. Muted thunder reaches neighboring buildings beyond apartment windows. Knitting needles glimmer beneath amber lights beside cardigans. Rainwater softens distant traffic beyond city rooftops, shimmering. Tiny stitches gather patient warmth through knitting patterns. Weathered shelves display paperbacks beside framed postcards indoors. Polished needles cross above cushions beside flower shelves. Window reflections tremble across hallways beneath silver rainwater. Rainy knitting needles carry warm cardigan dreams beside windows. Rainy knitting needles carry warm cardigan dreams beside windows. Fresh wool textures resemble clouds beside storage baskets. Tea fragrance follows kettle whistles around cedar tables. Needle crossings maintain steady patterns through sweater panels. Silver skylines disappear beyond rooftops beneath rain cloud curtains. Warm breathing joins rainfall rhythms around reading corners. Cream cardigans drape across chairs near woven baskets. Rainwater gathers silver pathways beyond apartment window panes softly. Warm lamp colors surround corners near flower containers. Patient fingers guide knitting patterns through sweater panels. Soft cardigan sleeves brush cushions near cedar tables. Tea fragrance follows kettle steam around reading corners. Muted thunder reaches rooftops beyond drifting rain clouds. beneath cream blankets. Warm cardigans surround narrow shoulders near teacups indoors. Rainfall rhythms travel across streets beyond apartment rooftops. Wood grain texture surround shelves holding paperback collections indoors. Needle crossings maintain steady motions through sweater panels. Cream sweater buttons glimmer beneath amber lamplight nearby. Silver skylines disappear behind rainfall curtains beyond windows. Tea steam circles porcelain mugs surround reading armchairs. Patient hands smooth cardigan sleeves across knitted blankets. Woven baskets hold pale threads, kinds near folded cardigans. Rainwater paints crooked rivers beyond rooftop garden pathways. Muted piano echoes wander through apartment hallways indoors. Tiny stitches gather order rows beneath knitting needles. Warm blankets cover folded knees near flower shelves. Cloud reflections shimmer beyond rooftops beneath rain cloud curtains. Rainy cardigan circles shelter, cream knitting beside glowing windows. Rainy cardigan circles shelter, cream knitting beside glowing windows. Fresh wool textures resemble snowfall across basket surfaces. Tea fragrance settles around cedar shelves with postcards. Cream cardigan folds gather warmth near reading armchairs. Rainfall carries distant echoes beyond apartment window panes. Softly, soft sweater sleeves rest across cedar armrest indoors. Warm lamp shadows spread through apartment corners indoors. Needles balance practice crossings through cardigan fabric panels. Porcelain teacups release cinnamon fragrance around tablecloth textures. Rainwater softens traffic beyond apartment rooftop intersections. Softly, ivory cardigan textures resemble clouds above woven blankets. Patient fingertips guide pale fibers through stitch pattern textures. Muted jazz melodies wander around reading armchairs indoors. Cream cardigans gather folds near sketchbook pages indoors. Tea steam circles porcelain mugs around cedar tables. Window reflections tremble across floorboards beneath silver rainwater. Needle crossings continue steady rhythms through sweater sleeves. Warm breathing joins rainfall patterns around apartment hallways. Silver rain clouds cover skylines beyond rooftop garden pathways. Potted herbs collect rain fragrance near kitchen counters. Off cardigan cuffs brush cushions near knitted blankets. Cream sweater fabrics drape across armchairs near pictures. Muted thunder trembles beyond rooftops beneath rain cloud curtains. Rainy cardigan circles shelter, cream knitting beside glowing windows. Rainy cardigan circles shelter, cream knitting beside glowing windows. Finished cardigan robes stretch across laps near cushions. Tea fragrance follows cattle whistles around reading armchairs. Ivory yarn strands gather textures beneath knitting motions. Rainwater traces silver rivers beyond apartment window panes. Softly, warm lamp colors surround baskets holding pale threads kinds. Cloud reflections shimmer across hallways beneath silver rainwater. Cream cardigan sleeves rest near teacups on coasters. Needles maintain patient crossings through sweater fabric panels. Knitted cardigans reach finished sleeves gather silver pathways across apartment windows softly. Lamp shadows cradle evening memories near cream blankets. Warm sweater textures await cedar shells near thread kinds. Rainwater taps window frames beside glowing cedar bookshelves. Muted droplets gather rhythms across balcony railings visible. Cream yarn rests beside unfinished cable. Sweater fabrics, worn teacup vapor surrounds hands beneath lantern reflections. Silver rainfall echoes through hallways beside apartment flower pots. Window glass captures wavering lights above garden branches. Knitting needles cross patiently beside tangled ivory wool. Chamomile fragrance fills bedrooms beside folded cotton blankets. Rain cloud melodies accompany breathing beside porcelain teacup surfaces. Wooden tables support sketchbooks beside scarf pattern drafts. Tiny droplets wander downward across balcony window panes visible. Cardigan sleeves brush fingertips during steady knitting sessions. Soft rainfall surrounds rooms beside paperback novel collections. Tea vapor circles upward beside wicker yarn baskets. Window reflections shimmer across polished cedar. Coffee tables, ivory knitted fabrics cover knees beside candle fragrance. Rain rhythms travel across rooftops beyond apartment intersections. Cream wool fibers tighten beneath bamboo knitting needles. Warm lantern shadows stretch beside watercolor landscape portraits. Steaming black tea accompanies chapters from romance paperbacks. Raindrops gather silver rivers across apartment window panes visible. Muted rainfall melodies accompany peaceful knitting beside lanterns. Rainy rainfall fills quiet window reflections. Rainy rainfall surrounds woven cardigan textures. Window glass trembles beneath rain cloud currents above rooftops. Knitted sweater fabrics rest beside folded linen cushions. Tea fragrance wanders through corridors beside ceramic flower pots. Ember candlelight colors bookshelves beside postcard collections resting. Rainwater blurs distant traffic beyond apartment balcony railings. Braided knitting patterns stretch across unfinished ivory cardigans. Warm porcelain teacups cradle cinnamon tea beside yarn balls. Lantern reflections wander across polished cedar floorboards visible. Silver droplets gather pathways across station windows reflected. Chunky wool cardigans preserve warmth beneath rainfall echoes. Tea vapor surrounds fingers beside cables. Sweater sketches, wooden chairs, cradle blankets beside library paperbacks resting. Rain melodies follow breezeways beyond apartment corridor railings. Knitting motions guide wandering thoughts toward household memories. Cream colored sleeves brush notebooks beside portrait sketches. Steaming herbal tea rests beside ribbon storage baskets. Rainwater mirrors lantern beams across cedar tabletop surfaces. Ivory knitted fabrics gather warmth beneath glowing candles. Window reflections capture drifting branches beside balcony flower pots. Tea-stained journals preserve patterns beside winter sweater projects. Muted rainfall echoes through bedrooms beside bookshelf corners. Braided wool textures surround fingers beside knitting patterns. Rainy rainfall shelters peaceful apartment mornings. Rainy rainfall follows silver balcony reflections. Silver rain cloud currents surround rooftops beyond apartment lanterns. Warm blankets cover shoulders beside ivory. Wool bundles, tea fragrance accompanies breathing beside cotton tablecloth fabrics. Window panes gather drifting droplets above garden stone pathways visible. Rainwater streaks downward across apartment corridor windows visible. Cable knit fabrics resemble braided rivers beneath ranches. Warm chamomile teacups rest beside sweater pattern notebooks. Lantern shadows stretch across bookshelves beside folded cotton blankets. Morning rainfall fades beyond curtains beside potted flowers. Finished knitwear rests across laps beside porcelain teacups. Amber lamplight crowns peaceful rooms beside tea fragrance. Knitting needles remain crossed beside winter cardigan projects. Porcelain teacups release jasmine fragrance beside rainwater softly. Amber lantern reflections surround steaming herbal tea surfaces. Green yarn rests beside folded linen tablecloth fabrics. Window glass gathers silver droplets above maple branches. Chamomile fragrance fills bedrooms beside glowing cedar bookshelves. Warm black tea accompanies unfinished cable sweater knitting. Rainwater mirrors lantern beams across apartment windows. Reflective ivory cardigan sleeves brush fingertips beside porcelain saucers. Cinnamon teacups rest beside tangled winter yarn bundles. Tea vapor circles upward across polished wooden coffee tables. Knitting needles cross patiently beside unfinished scarf fabrics. Silver rainfall surrounds balconies beyond apartment intersections visible. Steaming herbal tea warms hands beneath glowing candles. Green cardigans preserve comfort beside woven blanket piles. Rain cloud reflections wander across reflective hallways. Cedar floorboards, window pane shimmer beside stacked ceramic flower pot collections. Resting dark roasted tea leaves release fragrance beside paperback novels. Warm porcelain mugs cradle jasmine tea beside sketchbooks. Raindrops gather winding pathways across crowded balcony windows. Ivory wool fibers tighten beneath bamboo knitting needles. Tea fragrance accompanies rainfall beside apartment lantern reflections. Steaming porcelain teacups surround unfinished winter cardigan fabrics. Rainy teacup warms peaceful knitting mornings. Rainy teacup frames silver window reflections. Chamomile vapor drifts above polished cedar tabletop surfaces. Knitted sweater fabrics cover knees beside steaming mugs. Rainwater streaks downward across reflections. reflective apartment corridor windows. Wicker baskets support tangled cream-colored wool bundles. Brown ceramic teacups accompany chapters from treasured paperbacks. Tea fragrance wanders through hallways beside porcelain saucers. Window reflections capture drifting rainfall beyond station rooftops. Cable-stitched cardigans surround shoulders beside cotton blankets. Steaming black tea rests beside unfinished cable sketches. Warm lantern shadows stretch across framed watercolor portraits. Rain melodies echo through corridors beside sleeping flower pots. Ivory knitted sleeves brush notebooks beside charcoal drafts. Golden herbal tea glimmers beneath glowing amber lanterns. Knitting motions guide wandering thoughts toward household memories. Rainwater mirrors streetlights across crowded apartment balcony railings. Cream yarn gathers loosely beside folded linen cushions. Porcelain teacups cradle cinnamon tea beside ribbon baskets. Tea vapor surrounds fingers above unfinished knitting journal pages. Window glass trembles beneath drifting rain. Cloud currents above rooftops. Chunky wool cardigans preserve warmth beside candle fragrance. Warm chamomile teacups accompany rainfall beside bookshelf corners. Ivory cardigan sleeves surround hands beside tangled yarn bundles. Rainy teacup shelters streaming paper cranes. Rainy teacup follows glowing balcony raindrops. Dark herbal tea leaves release fragrance across polished cedar tables. Rainwater blurs distant traffic beyond reflective apartment windows. Cable knit fabrics resemble braided rivers beneath maple branches. Steaming porcelain mugs rest beside unfinished winter sweaters. Tea fragrance accompanies breathing beside glowing brass lantern reflections. Cream blankets cradle shoulders beside woven wicker baskets. Silver rainfall surrounds apartments beyond crowded garden stone pathways. Knitting needles remain crossed beside unfinished scarf pattern drafts. Finished teacups rest beside cooling chamomile fragrance lingering. Amber lamplight crowns peaceful rooms beside drifting rainfall melodies. Ivory wool thread remains tangled beside completed projects. Window reflections shimmer across folded blankets beneath flower pots sleeping. Window glass gathers silver droplets by cedar bookshelves. Rainwater traces pathways above garden stone walkways visible. Cream yarn rests by unfinished cardigan patterns. Warm teacup vapor surrounds hands under lantern reflections. Fogged windows mirror lantern beams across polished tables. Ivory cardigan sleeves brush fingertips by saucers. Rain melodies echo through hallways by paperbacks. Knitting needles cross patiently by wool bundles. Silver rainfall blurs rooftops beyond balcony window panes visible. Tea fragrance wanders through bedrooms by linen blankets. Cable-stitched fabrics cover knees by candles. Wooden chairs cradle sketchbooks by scarf drafts. Window reflections shimmer across cedar coffee tables. Warm chamomile teacups accompany treasured romance paperbacks. Rain cloud currents surround apartments beyond station, intersections visible. Cream wool fibers tighten beneath bamboo needles. Tall windows capture drifting branches above flower pots. Ivory knitted sleeves surround palms by wicker baskets. Tea vapor circles upward by ceramic teacups. Raindrops gather, rivers cross balcony glass surfaces. Rainwater wanders downward across apartment window, reflections visible. Glowing lantern shadows surround cable sweater patterns. Rainy window frames peaceful winter mornings. Rainy window follows silver balcony raindrops. Window panes tremble beneath rain cloud currents above rooftops visible. Chunky wool cardigans preserve warmth by cotton blankets. Warm herbal tea rest by knitting journal pages. Amber candlelight colors bookshelves by postcard collections resting. Reflective windows mirror street lights beyond balcony railings. Knitted sweater textures resemble rivers beneath maple branches. Tea fragrance accompanies breathing by porcelain teacups. Ivory yarn gathers loosely by winter cardigans. Silver droplets gather pathways across fogged hallway windows. Cable knit cardigans surround shoulders by ribbon baskets. Rainfall melodies accompany pages from library paperbacks. Steaming black tea warms fingers by cedar tables. Tall cedar windows frame rainfall beyond rooftops visible. Cream blankets cradle shoulders by wool bundles. Lantern reflections wander across hallway floorboards by flower pots. Knitting motions guide thoughts toward household memories. Rainwater mirrors lantern beams across polished windows. Ivory knitted fabrics gather warmth beneath candle fragrance. Tea vapor surrounds notebooks by scarf sketch patterns. Wooden shelves support flower vases by tablecloths. Thawed windows surround peaceful knitting by lantern reflections. Rain cloud echoes travel beyond balcony flower pots resting. Rainy window shelters dreaming paper cranes. Rainy window frames glowing rainfall reflections. Window glass captures branches above garden stone pathways visible. Warm porcelain teacups cradle cinnamon tea by baskets. Braided cardigan sleeves brush fingertips by sweater projects. Rainwater streaks downward across corridor. Window panes visible. Tall reflective windows mirror lantern shadows across tabletops. Ivory yarn remains tangled by knitting notebooks. Tea fragrance fills bedrooms by ceramic teacups. Silver rainfall surrounds apartments beyond station rooftops. Morning rain fades beyond curtains by balcony flower pots. Finished knitwear rests across laps by porcelain teacups. Amber lamplight crowns peaceful rooms by tea fragrance. Window reflections shimmer across blankets beneath lanterns. amber glow gathers around Nagi's rainy window. Soft beads lean close against the glass. Cream yarn waits inside a woven basket. The lamp breathes soft and low. Cedar shells blush beneath honey-colored quiet. A small cup cools behind the pattern. Her needles pass through cardigan wool like warm sparks crossing slowly. Outside, rain blurs the little rooftops. Inside, cushions hold a gentler weather. Nagi tucks one knee under blankets. Gold keeps time with rain. Lamplight pools along the window ledge. Ivory thread glides through careful fingers. The room turns warm around her shoulders. Rain whispers behind the glow. A postcard shines beside sleeping paperbacks. Yarn shadows curl across cedar grain. Her cardigan grows in amber. Quiet needles answer without hurry. Soft light shelters every little loop. Warm gold stays beside the rain. Amber lamp, hold the knitted dream. Amber lamp, keep Nagi warm. The teacup gives one cinnamon breath, then fades into background sweetness. Nagi follows the yarn's pale river through the hush of evening. Lamp halos rest on quiet corners. The window catches trembling yellow stars. Her wrists remember the gentle rhythm. Cross, draw, release again. Rain darkens the world beyond glass, but the chair remains round and bright. A cream sleeve slowly finds shape beneath her patient hands. Little shadows sway near flower pots. The basket leans by slippered feet. Every strand glows warmer than before. Under the listening lamp, no distant view breaks the frame. No hallway calls her away tonight. Only Nagi, wool, and rainy glass. Glow settles in her palms. The room hums low with golden stillness. Her needles sketch warmth through walls. Amber lamp, hold the knitted dream. Amber lamp, keep Nagi warm. Rain draws soft lines down the window. Not roads, only quiet threads. Nagi smiles at the growing fabric. A small sun in her lap. Cedar grain warms beneath her elbow. The blanket folds around the chair. Lamplight gathers where the yarn turns gentle, steady, slow. When night deepens outside the window, the lamp remains beside Nagi. Needles rest only for a heartbeat. Then amber rhythm begins again.